The top 10 wide receivers to break out in 2022, right after the stinger. It's Felix Sharp at Sharp Review on Twitter for CampusToCanton.com. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel so you never miss any of the content that we're dropping. And if you're a college football fan and you haven't been involved in Campus to Canton leagues yet, you got to check out the link in the description box so you can get in on all the fun. All of these players that I'm going to identify today, you could have them rostered and be cheering them on Saturday nights or Saturday afternoons or whenever they're playing. You got to be playing in Campus to Canton leagues. Let's get into the list. We're going to go 10 through 1 here, starting with number 10, Jaden Bray, Oklahoma State. Now, Mike Gundy has a history of developing these physical X-style wide receivers. Dez Bryant, James Washington, Tylan Wallace, Justin Blackman. Even last year with Tay Martin was a very good college wide receiver. And Bray seems to be up next. He fits the mold, 6'2", 190 pounds. Had some success as a true freshman, 4 for 84 and 1 against Tulsa. Big physical wide receiver in that system that feeds that style of wide receiver. Talon Shetron is there. He seems to be next. He's the future. But I think Jaden Bray is now, and I expect him to break out in 2022. He's number 10 on my list. Let's go to number 9. That's Luther Burden, the 5-star freshman from St. Louis, going to Missouri. Had an excellent spring game. Targeted over 10 times in that spring game and used around the line of scrimmage, on some deep breaking routes, but he's going to be used on a team that needs some offensive firepower there. I'd be remiss, though, if I did not mention Dominic Lovett, who 24/7 Sports identified as a potential impact freshman last year. Now, he wasn't exactly that, but he's an athletic player in his own right. You can use Lovett and Burden many of the similar ways around the line of scrimmage, bubble screens, jailbreak screens, and Lovett is excellent after the catch. So Luther Burden is the breakout, but look out for Dominic Lovett there at Missouri. He's number 7 on my list. That gives us number 8, Matthew Golden, another freshman wide receiver here at Houston. Houston soon to be in the Big 12. If you aren't in college the fantasy space and aren't paying attention, this guy is an excellent recruit, one of the highest rated recruits to go to Houston in some time, a 4-star wide receiver. And Dana Holgorsen recently talking about who are some players who could alleviate the pressure on Nathaniel Dell, one of the best wide receivers in the country. And he said Matthew Golden's name several times. He's been very good in training camp, very good in the spring game. Another freshman with a strong spring game performance. He should be one of the most productive freshmen in the country, and at the receiving end of a lot of passes from Clayton Tune there in Houston. Matthew Golden is number 8 on my list, and that brings me to number 7, Miles Price, Texas Tech. Now, this call is just as much about Miles Price as it is about the offensive coordinator, Zach Kittley, one of the hottest offensive coordinators in the country, bringing that air raid system. First from Houston Baptist, then to Western Kentucky, a record-setting, broke the 2019 LSU records with Bailey Zappi and Jareth Stearns, just throwing the ball all over the place. Jareth Stearns, the slot wide receiver there at Western Kentucky last year, 150 yards, almost 2,000 yards receiving, and that is the position that Miles Price is going to be occupying there at Texas Tech. Who's going to be throwing him the ball? But we don't know. But he should be getting a lot of targets there as Zach Kittley's slot wide receiver. I would not be surprised, and I don't know if I said this already, I would not be surprised if we looked up in 2-3 years and Zach Kittley is the offensive coordinator at Alabama, Texas, USC, one of these blue blood Power 5 schools. So be on the lookout for Miles Price in 2022. He's going to break out. That brings us to number 6. I think I have the number 6 player on this list entirely too low. Lorenzo Styles, Notre Dame, might be one of the fastest wide receivers in the country, playing in the slot. He can attack you deep, and it's really difficult to attack a wide receiver who has deep speed from the slot because they have a two-way go. You're not pressing them. Puts a lot of pressure either on the safety or a nickel corner that's guarding them. Lorenzo Styles had success last year, finished the season really, really strong. Brian Kelly goes to LSU, but he's not able to take either of his coordinators. I shouldn't say he didn't take either of his coordinators. So there's going to be continuity there in South Bend. Now, the interesting thing about Styles is you're going to have a new quarterback there, most likely Tyler Buckner. Tyler Buckner, a very good dual threat quarterback, but doesn't have the arm strength to attack the perimeter. So I think that Lorenzo Styles could play outside if he needed him to. But with a quarterback who's not really comfortable or doesn't appear to be comfortable attacking the perimeter, let's keep him in the slot. When we want to throw deep, we can throw him deep along in the seam. So Lorenzo Styles, I think, is an excellent, has tremendous acceleration. I expect him and Michael Mayer to kind of occupy the middle of the Notre Dame passing game and the intermediate routes for both of them. Lorenzo Styles might be too low here at number 6. He probably is. Should have an excellent second season there at Notre Dame. Number 5, Isaiah Nayor, Texas. Now, this is one of my favorite players in the country, the Wyoming transfer, who last season at Wyoming accounted for 42% of the receiving yardage there for a Wyoming team that's not excellent at quarterback and ran the ball a lot. So when they threw the ball, they were throwing to Isaiah Nayor. If you like throwback players, if you like players with a lot of length, physicality, contested catch, that's Isaiah Nayor. He's not going to scare you with his speed, but he has a lot of length. You can throw it to him anywhere, and he can catch it. Catch radius type player. Isaiah Nayor is number 10. Plucky hands. And Steve Sarkisian has had a strong history of producing wide receivers, especially here recently. 6'3", 218 pounds. Whether it's Hudson Card, whether it's Quint Ewers, I think that Isaiah Nayor is going to be a focus of the passing game. He might even lead them in touchdowns. Isaiah Nayor is number 5 on this list, and I'll go a step further and say I think that Isaiah Nayor is a potential day 1 NFL draft pick, but I think that he's locked in to day 2. He can do a lot of the things, not everything, but he can do a lot of the things and play a similar style to Drake London at USC. So Isaiah Nayor is number 5 on my list. That brings me to number 4, Parker Washington. Now, Penn State had to go down to Texas to get this wide receiver, and really ever since he stepped foot on the field, even in training camp as a freshman, hyperbole has surrounded Parker Washington. James Washington describing him as having elite ball skills, and you really see that again. Another player with plucky hands, should occupy the slot as he has this point in his career. And again, going back, I mean, he started from day 1. You think about his first game, that COVID-shortened Big Ten season where Penn State takes on Indiana in that one of the most epic games in the last 2 or 3 years in college football, when Indiana won that game, Michael Penix Jr. stretching out for the touchdown at the end. But Parker Washington, very productive in that game, and has kind of been overshadowed just a bit by Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson no longer there. You got Mitchell Tinsley. You got Parker Washington inside. I expect him to be a focal point of at least the passing game, and if not the offense entirely. You could run the offense through Parker Washington, one of my favorite players in the country. Number 3, JoJo Earl. No, I guess I have a thing for slot receivers. This is like the 3rd one in a row. And this is quite the projection. But coming out of, I think it's Aledo, Texas, JoJo Earl very much reminded me of Dante Hall, the former Kansas City Chiefs punt returner. When you got the ball in his hands, he was simply electric after the catch. JoJo Earl has a lot of that in him. He did not play in spring ball last year, still commanded a role early, splitting touches with Slade Bolden at Alabama. Slade Bolden no longer there. He's going to occupy the slot, would probably get some opportunities to return punts. Shaky in the spring game, but again, this is a player that has it after he catches the ball. He doesn't have the speed to scare you, but once he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to make people miss. So JoJo Earl is my number 3 player. He's got to clean up the drops. Had a few drops in that spring game, but JoJo Earl is number 3. That brings me to number 2, a smaller wide receiver like Earl, but who can play inside and outside, and that is Mario Williams, transfer from Oklahoma to USC. Now, Williams, again, identified last year by several publications as a potential impact player. He was productive, somewhat, about 400 yards receiving. But Lincoln Riley used him around the line of scrimmage, didn't deploy him down the field as much. Well, you got Jordan Addison there. You got Mario Williams as the other option. I would think that with no Marvin Mims to stretch the field, no Mike Woods there, that Mario Williams is going to be one of your players that you deploy downfield, which is something Caleb Williams loves to do. Caleb Williams absolutely loves throwing the ball deep. And again, Mario Williams has the quick twitch to play inside in the slot. He has the speed, and he can get off press coverage to beat you deep. So Mario Williams is number 2 on my list. And I guess you would know who's number 1, since we haven't said his name to this point. And that is Marvin Harrison Jr., the second-year player at Ohio State. Talk about throwbacks. I mean, 6'3", 200 pounds. He can move suddenly like his father did. He just moves different for a player that big. Now, he's not going to – this is where you got some players who are going to run after the catch. I don't think that Marvin Harrison is going to threaten you that way. But as far as getting open and being able to catch the ball with length and catch radius and separation ability, I see a lot of that in Marvin Harrison Jr. and some explosiveness in a bigger body. Usually you don't see those things in the same body type, but he is a big man who runs like a little man. And quite frankly, he's got C.J. Stroud throwing him the ball. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 1 on my potential breakout list for 2022. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who did I overlook? Is there anybody that I overlooked that you expect to have a major season here in 2022? All right. I'll talk to you later. Peace, Mom.